Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we're going to be talking about a VK Warpath 2.0. Before we get into the video, I'd suggest liking and commenting on the video, as that's the best way to support the channel, especially since YouTube has got way more draconic about sharing my videos. So, in this build guide, I will be honest, this is not as good as Flameburst Warpath. If you are looking for the quote unquote best Warpath build, this is not it. VK Warpath is good, it's just nowhere near as good as, Flameburst Warpath. Now, it does have its merit. So, with the addition of Dark Strides, you get an insane amount of movement speed while warpathing, which leads to a very buttery smooth monolith playstyle. So, if I was concerned about speed running monoliths and not about pushing arena, I would definitely choose VK Warpath over Flameburst Warpath. As you can tell in the footage, I'm pretty much just zooming everywhere. The problem is, because of the way echoes work and how the VK echoes work and all the modifiers work, pretty much all of your damage comes from your echoes. And if you've ever played VK Warpath before, the echoes are really annoying to trigger. So pretty much the way they work is if you're like moving around with Warpath for at least 4 seconds, after that 4-second time, you will get an extra Warpath. The problem is the way that the game calculates that 4 seconds of motion or whatever. The problem is if you just go back and forth like you normally think you would have to, that doesn't work as well. Now, if you do kind of like a circle movement, kind of like an ellipse movement, it actually works, because I think it's like programmed to not account for straight lines. Like, it's kind of dumb. Like, the echo stuff is bugged, and it's like working with like black magic. You gotta you gotta convene with the dark gods to get the echoes to work. Now, that will be a playstyle thing. You will have to understand how this works. You'll have to eventually play around with it and feel it. But once you get it to the point where you can consistently create VK echoes, you will be doing insane amounts of single target. This single target is comparable to Flameburst Warpath once you get everything set up properly. Just the amount of damage you can get from echoes alone is insane. The amount of attack speed you can get while dual wielding. They added a new weapon this patch, a new base type. It's called a Shadow Cleaver, which is an axe that has flat void damage on it, which allows us to run Dark Strides much easier. And just in combination with all of this, has been insanely strong. The only problem is we lost the lunge crit. And to deal with that, we're actually running double copper rings right now. We are running, I think, crit gloves. Like, we're pretty much running as much crit as humanly possible, and as you can tell in the footage, we are doing completely fine. Thanks to the 150% crit that Anomaly gives us, we still have a decent enough crit chance. Now, this build is actually very cheap to play as well, since everything except for the Dark Strides is easily farmable, as the weapons themselves aren't very crazy. It's just a katana with melee void and melee crit and stuff, or like a Shadow Cleaver with melee void and melee attack speed on it. Like, the 10% base crit on inside Warpath is insane as well. Now, you will have to farm Spirits of Fire for the Dark Strides, but they are a common drop, and by the time you get this build to Empowered Monoliths, you will probably already have a pair of Dark Strides, or you'll probably just have in your inventory, because they're just that common. So this build is actually very cheap. Now, like I said, if you want to be pushing through monoliths fast and you don't really care about arena, this is definitely the build for you. With that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Hello, here we are in game with the build here. The name is Speedy McGoFast, because most of our movement speed is coming from our boots, as you can tell, an insane amount of movement speed. So if we actually proc everything here, going about 40% while warpathing, which is a lot, by the way, and then like 80% without. And then, of course, with the volatile reversal, we're all the way up to 73%. Now, if you wanted to go even faster for some reason, you could always equip a Wings of Argentus and go for a movement speed ring here, which I don't know why my ring is so trash, but we're just going to ignore that. And you could go even faster than this if you wanted to. You could go at 68% while warpathing. You could go up to 97% while warpathing. You go even faster, but I found that the damage from this chest is definitely worth it. Now, To get into the skills here for Warpath here, we take 2 points travel into Unchained, so we get -4 on mana cost, and 1 point into Reckless Spin, so we get -6, so that we go to a full -10 negative channel cost, so we're always at 0. If you are the kind of person that likes to just turn on Warpath and just ignore it for the rest of the time, this is definitely the build for you. 1 point travel into Iron Reach for a little bit of AoE. 5 points into Whirling Steel. This is doubled because we are dual wielding. It's nice that they added that. And then, of course, 4 to 5 points out of Cyclone of War. This is actually where all of our leech is coming from because we actually are wielding an axe and a sword at the same time. If you didn't know, if you're wielding a sword, you get the 10% base crit, and then if you're wielding an axe, you get the leech. Now, I only have 4 points in here because I don't have +1 to +2 to Warpath yet. Now, if we eventually do get +2 to Warpath, you would take 1 point here, and then probably an extra point into area. Yeah, probably area or something, or movement speed. You could go even faster if you wanted to. If you wanted to deal less damage, you could go even faster. And of course, 2 points into Void Spiral, just extra melee flat void. This does not apply to our Dark Stride, sadly. 1 point into Echo Knight. This allows us to echo with Warpath, also gives us a little bit of increased damage. This is very cryptic. I'll explain what this means later. 1 point into Apocalypse Whirl. Pretty much what it does is it turns all of our bleed and ignite into Time Rot Chance. Now, if you did not know, right now, currently, my game is bugged. Whenever I have any amount of bleed chance, any amount, my game just starts lagging like insanely hard. So I only have ignite here, but you could very easily run some what do you call it? Like some bleed as well. Like bleed chance on the like you can run bleed chance, ignite chance, bleed chance, ignite chance, like it doesn't matter what you run. But yeah, that's the beautiful thing about this node. And the reason why we care about this so much is because of Maw of the Deep. Maw of the Deep is the main reason to be playing VK Warpath. It is an insane amount of more damage for our hits and is actually so good that a lot of other builds end up running these nodes because of that. Now, with that being said, that's pretty much for Warpath. Now, if you wanted to deal less damage, you could kind of like take points out of Whirling Steel, put points into Quicksilver Wind. Eventually, if you get a +2 to Warpath, which I don't have, you could take 1 point out of Whirling Steel, then put 3 points into Quicksilver Wind. So you'll actually be faster and also have the same amount of damage. I just don't have it right now. And of course, Anomaly, this is your stereotypical anomaly tree. The main difference is we do grab 1 point into Void Maw, which increases the health leech that our Cyclone of War gives us, which is an insane amount of leech. So we are actually very well easily sustained on bosses like on Orbis. We can just face sync him because we pretty much just sit on top of him and he just dies. Then for sigils, this is your stereotypical sigil setup, except with one difference is that we are running the void damage version. So we get a bunch of increased void damage while also getting a bunch of flat void damage. As you can tell, while we are here, I can show you, we actually gain about, I think it's like 20% movement speed. Yeah, it's like some 20% movement speed from our sigils, which makes sigils even more broken than they already are. Then of course, volatile reversal is your stereotypical crit setup. Then it's actually really cool because you actually get even more void time rot chance from your volatile reversal, which is nice. And of course, devouring orb. This is like your stereotypical setup on devouring orb for utility, mainly just to be able to have the extra movement speed because what else are we going to use? We're not going to use lunge, right? We're going to use devouring orb. We're going to get the increased damage, and of course, have the abyssal orb shoot. That's really nice for extra, shred on bosses, stuff like that. Doesn't really matter. It's just there for the extra movement speed. That's really all it's there for. That's pretty much it for the skills. For the passives here, I take 8 points in the Fearless because HP is really good on this build because you want to stack as much HP as possible as a Void Knight. 5 points into Armor Clad for the reduction. You're always near enemies. 6 points into Relentless for the extra damage, and we also want to boost our way up to Blade Master. 5 points to Valiant Charge. That's actually, I believe this should apply to Volatile Reversal. I'm not entirely sure if it does or not, but I know it should. And of course, extra flat health is nice. Then 1 point into Gladiator, so you can dual wield, will take increased damage, but we pretty much make up for that with other stuff. Then 5 points into Blade Master. This does not double dip anymore. You'll only get 30% even if you're wielding an axe and a sword. The only reason we're wielding an axe and a sword is to benefit from the double dip from Cyclone of War. So yeah, that's that's sad that this was removed. We could have like 30% increase attack speed for free. Sag. It was kind of one of the main reasons to go dual wield as Sentinel. The only reason I'm going dual wield is because of the benefit of utilizing a shadow cleaver, right? Otherwise, I would just go for a two-handed sword instead and be just fine. Then, of course, Paladin is your stereotypical Paladin setup, just some elemental res so we can cap our resistances faster. 2 points into Valor, then 5 points into Blinding Light for some endurance because you don't have room for it on gear. Then for Void Knight, 10 points into Abyssal Endurance is like one of the best nodes in the game, as it gives you like pretty much 3 suffixes for 10 points, which is insane. 6 points in Temporal Corruption. You want as much flat void on your tree as possible, because this actually applies to your movement speed from Dark Strides, because it is a global buff. We take 1 point travel into World Eater for extra leech, 8 points into Void Blades for melee flat void, and of course, 1 point into Void Corruption for crit multi, because we're actually getting 60% crit multi just from one node, which is one of the main reasons to be a Void Knight. And we take 4 points travel into Woe, which is a lot of damage, don't get me wrong, so that we can get to Singular Purpose for increased damage as well. Here, you want as much increased damage as possible. It's one of the main problems with Sentinel is lack of increased damage. Now, we're going to eventually take 10 points out of Eternal Form. This is like one of the best nodes in the game now. It rivals the Werebear node. This is one of the main reasons why VK is so strong this patch, is because it gets so much freaking health, right? Then 5 points into Echoing Strikes, 10 points into Time Legion, then 1 point into Avatar of Regret. So we get the 40% Echo chance, which gets turned into 80%. Then 1 point into Dread. Eventually, we're going to have all the points into Dread. I'm just 96. Eventually, what you can do is you can kind of like mess with the tree and eventually move up into these nodes. There's like a lot of other stuff you can do as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the passives. Now for the gearing here, the most important thing is your weapons. So I dropped this Shadow Cleaver, and it's the main reason why I'm playing this build, because it's that good. Now, obviously, you could get away with a non-T6 Shadow Cleaver. It's just fun to play around with my exalted items. And of course, for the katana, you do want some extra melee crit. I found that this extra melee crit chance on top of the 8% that we get from Cyclone of War is enough to keep us capped on crit. Because like I said, you have to make up for the fact that you don't have lunge anymore. And of course, melee void, and shred, and then ignite or bleed. Probably ignite, because if you're having the same problems as me, you're probably lagging too. Then for the helmet, that would be increased health instead of just flat health. And of course, the echo damage. So why this is important, so I can show you. When we're moving around, that guy gets about 160% increased damage from here, 100% increased damage here, 138% increased damage here, and 138% increased damage here. Pretty much, your echoes will do way more damage than you ever would, which is why your single target's through the roof, but your clear kind of looks monk-esque. Obviously, you just kind of like adapt to the assassin playstyle. You don't kill things on the way. You just move all the way to the boss or the objective, and then just summon your echoes and then finish the mono. It's very good considering you have so much movement speed, so it's like completely fine. Then for the amulet here, crit chance, crit multi. You probably want poison resistance and frailty. Of course, for the chest, I got an exalted chest. Instead of that strength, you'd want +2 to Warpath, and obviously you would want this on the crit avoid base. Then for the ring, this should be a better ring. Crit chance and probably void damage would be your best bets on the prefixes, or strength for increased armor. Then for the belt, we have a little bit of mana regen, mainly just so that if I stop warpathing and I'm like using stuff as I'm warpathing, I get back to cap full. Although you technically don't need this, is just quality of life, so you don't always constantly, run out of mana. Then of course, 1 siphon of anguish. This is just for the increased leech rate. It's for the movement speed, for the resistance. Also, Doom gives you a lot of increased damage taken, which is really strong. So mainly that's why you don't have to technically run this. It's just extra damage. Then for the gloves, my pride and joy gloves. You guys already know if you've been watching the channel for a while. And of course, dark strides, very strong for the build as just obviously so much movement speed for free. Like you literally get movement speed for stacking damage. Like why not, right? And for the relic, you'd probably want crit multi and then resistances as well. And that's pretty much it. And then idols, you can get increased melee void damage, increased warpath area. Those are your best ones. Or you can get ignite chance at high health or bleed chance at high health. Either of those work. Same thing down here, I think. Yeah, right there. This is like an insane amount of increased damage for just a 3x1. Then of course the echo, and then you can get the ignite slash bleed chance at high health, which gets converted into time rot chance. Same thing with this one as well. You can either get time rot on hit or the other stuff. You obviously want the ignite or the bleed because they come in higher values. Then of course 2 crit slash HP idols, or you could just run double HP idols. Depends on how much you're lacking crit. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the build guide today, guys. Sorry it's so brief, but this build's pretty easy. It's like been built before. It's just you can just get to run dark strides now. But with that being said, thank you all for watching. Oh, I did forget. Okay. Let me show you the magic. Okay. So normally you would attack like this, right? Normally this would work. And as you can tell, we're not getting any echoes. You know why? Because it has to be continuous movement. So if you read this again, you can only create a Warpath echo if you've been spinning for at least 2 seconds and traveled 4 meters. Now, I have no idea what actually 4 meters is in game, but I would assume it's nearby. So there you go, right? That was like 4 meters right there. Now, how do we do this, but on single target, right? Well, what you do is the game thinks that since you're making a circle like I am here, like an ellipse, it thinks that you're doing the travel, which you're not technically, but you see what I'm getting at? So that's what you want to do. That's how you do it. You do like an ellipse. All right, with that being said, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and bye.